I'm 94 years old, and I spend most evenings sitting in a house that once felt too small for my life. My name is Samuel Whitaker. I did everything the way a responsible man is supposed to do it. I worked. I provided. I kept going. And now, at the end of it all, I understand something I wish had frightened me earlier. Old age is not hard because your body slows down. It's hard because you finally see what truly mattered and what didn't. I buried my wife 3 winters ago. I stood beside the grave and realized the person who knew me best was gone. Not the version of me people respected, not the provider, not the dependable man at work, just me. And when I came home that evening, the silence in this house was louder than any argument we ever had. There are 4 things you will need when you grow old. I had the wrong ones. I had money in the bank. I had a paid-off house. I had certificates with my name printed neatly on them. None of those sat beside me at night. None of those answered the phone when I called. I am not telling you a polished story. I am telling you what it feels like to reach 94 and realize the most important parts of life were built quietly or neglected quietly. And by the time you understand which is which, there is no going back. If you listen to me, listen fully, because no one told me this when I was young, and I would give almost anything to have heard it then. When I was 25, I believed security was love. I married Eleanor in a small church with creaky wooden floors and fading white paint on the walls. We didn't have much money. We had hope in a borrowed car. That felt like enough. I remember looking at her during the vows and thinking, I will take care of you. That sentence became the backbone of my life. We moved into a narrow 2-bedroom house near the train tracks. The paint peeled in places. The roof leaked when it rained too hard. But it was ours. I worked at the manufacturing plant across town. It wasn't glamorous. It was loud, and the air smelled like oil and metal. But it paid steady wages. Steady felt important. I watched my father struggle when I was a boy. I remember him sitting at the kitchen table with unpaid bills spread out like a losing hand of cards. I swore my children would never see that look on my face. So I worked. At first it felt temporary, just until we saved enough, just until we were comfortable, just until I proved myself. Comfort kept moving further away. By 30, we had 2 children, Claire and Daniel. The house felt tighter, louder, alive. I loved coming home to the noise. I truly did. But I also started coming home later. Promotions require sacrifice. That's what my supervisor told me. That's what I told myself. Eleanor never complained much. She would have dinner warm. She would ask about my day. I would answer with details about production numbers and deadlines. I mistook that for conversation. I rarely asked how she was feeling, not because I didn't care, because I thought I would have time later. The first thing you will need in old age is relationships that were nourished when they were fragile. Not managed, not assumed, nourished. When Claire was 8, she had a school recital. She practiced her lines in the living room for weeks. I remember hearing her voice from the kitchen while I skimmed paperwork. The night of the recital, a client meeting ran late. I told Eleanor I would try to make it. Try. I arrived just as parents were filing out. Claire stood near the exit holding a paper flower. She smiled when she saw me, but it was the kind of smile children use when they've already adjusted their expectations. "It's okay, Dad," she said. "That sentence follows you longer than you expect. You don't lose closeness in one dramatic moment. You lose it in small disappointments that teach someone not to rely on you." By my 40s, I was respected at work. People listened when I spoke. I had a corner office with a window that overlooked the parking lot. It felt like progress. At home, my children were becoming independent. They talked more to their mother. They asked her for advice. They went to her when they were hurt. I told myself that was natural. Mothers are different. I did not see that I had made myself peripheral in their emotional lives. Not by cruelty, by absence. When Daniel turned 16, he wanted to show me a car he was restoring with a friend. I promised we'd look at it Saturday. Saturday came. I was tired. I told him maybe next weekend. There is always a next weekend when you are 40. There are not many when you are 94. Health is a second thing you will need in old age. I treated mine like a background detail. Fast food between meetings, coffee instead of sleep, stress as a badge of honor. At 58, I began waking up with headaches. I ignored them. At 61, climbing stairs left me winded. I blamed age. Then one afternoon while signing paperwork, a tightness gripped my chest so hard I had to sit down. The doctor used calm words: blockage, arteries, risk. He also used another word: change. Lying in that hospital bed, I stared at the ceiling tiles and realized my body had been keeping score. You don't negotiate with time forever. After the heart attack, I slowed down, not by choice, by necessity. Eleanor stayed by my side. She brought me soup in a thermos. She adjusted my pillows. She never once said, "I told you so." Her quiet loyalty hurt more than any criticism would have. When you grow old, you will need a body that still allows you some dignity. You will need to walk without fear of falling. You will need to breathe without counting. You cannot build that at 80. You build it when you still believe you are invincible. I retired at 70. I thought I would finally feel free. Instead, I felt hollow. Work had structured my identity. Without it, I was unsure who I was in the quiet hours. The phone stopped ringing as much. Invitations slowed. People I once met weekly became names I hadn't dialed in months. The third thing you will need in old age is purpose that is not tied to a paycheck, something that remains when titles disappear. Eleanor had friendships. She had church groups and neighbors she checked on. She had conversations that did not revolve around achievement. I realized I had neglected that part of my life. I had colleagues, not community. Loneliness is different when you are older. It doesn't shout, it settles. Then Eleanor got sick, 81 years old, and we heard the word cancer in a sterile office with beige walls. The treatments were slow. So was the understanding that we were nearing something final. I sat beside her bed and replayed our life in fragments. Our wedding day, Claire's recital, Daniel's unfinished car project, the nights I said I was too tired to talk, The weekends I chose errands over walks. Eleanor squeezed my hand one evening and said, "You always tried your best." That was her kindness speaking. I wish I had known that trying and choosing are not the same thing. She died on a quiet morning in January. Snow on the ground, still air. I drove home alone and walked into a house that suddenly felt unfamiliar. The kitchen table where she once sat seemed too large. Her chair remained empty. This is when the fourth thing becomes undeniable. You will need peace with your choices, not perfection, peace. Because when you sit alone with memory, there is nowhere to hide. I cannot redo Claire's recital. I cannot revisit Saturday afternoons with Daniel. I cannot go back and ask Eleanor more questions about her day. What cannot be fixed becomes clear in old age. Time does not return what it takes. My children visit, they call, they are kind, but they have their own lives. I do not blame them. Life pulls forward. I sometimes look at their faces and wonder if they carry small, quiet disappointments from childhood. Not enough to break love, but enough to shape distance. Old age is not just about what you lose. It is about what you realize you once had and did not fully hold. So if you are listening, I will say this softly. You will need relationships that feel warm, not formal. You will need health that allows you to sit in the sun without pain. You will need purpose that outlives your career, and you will need a heart that can forgive itself. I sit by the window most evenings now. The trains still pass in the distance. The world continues its rhythm. I am not angry. I am not bitter. I am simply aware. When you are young, you think love will wait. You think there will always be another chance to show up. You think your body will always recover. You think your value is measured by output. Then one day you are 94, and you understand that what mattered most was never loud. It was small dinners, school recitals, conversations at the edge of sleep, walks you postponed, laughter you cut short. If this reaches you in a quiet moment, sit with it. You do not need to change everything tomorrow. Just notice what you are postponing. Notice who is waiting for you to arrive fully. I cannot rebuild my past, but I can tell you what I finally understand. And perhaps that is enough. The light outside my window is fading now. Evenings come earlier than they used to. I finish my tea slowly. I whisper goodnight to a house that once echoed with noise. And I hope wherever you are, you build what you will one day need.